All right, hey everyone. It's what's today? Tuesday night. It's 9:15 Central Standard Time. Thank you so much for coming in to watch this video. Obviously, we got a couple things we got to talk about. Really two things here: is Bitdeer production update for April, and then Cipher's Q1 results. They were actually really good, but the stock didn't actually do that well today. So we'll get into as why I think that might be the case for it, and we'll see what obviously is happening with the miners today, Bitcoin as well, network hash rate, hash price, network hash rate. Yeah, I think that's it. Right, I think that's it in there. There's quite a few things we're going to take a look at, obviously, with Bitcoin here. But as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice, for entertainment only, and you know the whole spiel here. This is my full disclosure for everybody here, so everybody's aware of what I'm invested in and everything else, okay? If you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And let's take a look at what's going on here with some charts here on Bitcoin really quick, and then we'll get into the news stories as well. But if we look at right now the total network hash rate for Bitcoin, this is on the 30-day average. We can see that it is actually starting to come down a little bit here. It's at 621 exahash. We were kind of flat here for a couple days. Since April 26, we kind of got to 625, and then we kind of bounced to 623, 625, 623, 624, 625, and now we're down to 621 here. This is the 30-day average, right? On the 7-day average, we're seeing a little bit more of a dip here. We're at 593 exahash right now on it. We peaked at 650 here, which is kind of expected after the halving event, right? This is something we wanted to see actually with the dip in that. Less efficient miners are getting basically unplugged at this point. It's kind of like the halving event is like a cleansing for old machines that are on the network right now. It's happened with every single halving event. It's happening more slowly this time around because Bitcoin price has been much higher than it has been in the past, obviously, and different cycles. So we're kind of seeing this kind of happen more slowly here than we would have seen otherwise. But it is happening here. So we are starting to see a little bit of a downturn in the network hash rate here. If we look at the 1-day chart, you can see that we're all the way down to now 534 exahash here. Last time we were at that range was probably back here. We were at 500 on March 20th, actually. So that's going back quite a ways here. Okay, so we are coming back down on the network hash rate a little bit, which is obviously good for the miners that are efficient with good machines and everything else, so they'll do much better going forward. We'll also have a difficulty adjustment happening here because of the network hash rate coming down. That's obviously going to have a good impact on the miners that are still mining, so that's good things there. Okay, so that's the network hash rate. If we look at the Bitcoin fees here over the last couple of days, we can see here that they've leveled back off around 35 to like $40 range, or 30 to 40, wow, I can't speak, 35 to 40 BTC range in the last couple of days here. So that's kind of what we're going to be expected to see going forward, unless ordinals or runes start to pump a little bit here. That's going to help. We had a little bit of a bump here, obviously, on Sunday. We went up to 124 BTC, which was good to see as well. And then the hash price here, hash price has been Sunday. This is Sunday hash price, obviously. And then now we're back down to about $49 per petahash. Okay, that's to be expected. We're past the halving event. That's kind of what we would expect to see, unless Bitcoin really starts rocketing back up. And then Bitcoin today itself was down again. So we were down on Monday. Yesterday, we were down today again. Today, we obviously broke or closed below our support line here, which was at 63,700. And we're below it again today. So maybe we'll come down and touch this next support, which is at 61,000. And maybe bounce off of that, right? We came down all the way down to 57,000. We bounced off of that. So we may come down here, bounce off of that some more. We'll have to see, right? Nobody really knows what's going to happen until it actually happens, and we'll talk about it at that point. The miners, for the most part, today were down. They were, for the most part, up yesterday. So it's kind of to be expected here that with Bitcoin being down, the miners would be down as well. But obviously, the big one here was that was down the most was Cipher. Cipher was down 15% on the day. They even had good numbers for Q1 results. But we'll get into, obviously, why I think the stock actually did kind of bad today. When we look at Cipher Q1 results, we'll go over that details here at that point. But you can see here on the 15-minute chart, ever since the basically opened up in the morning, it just started going down. It was actually up, I think, in the pre-hours, but after that, once the market opened up, it was going down. So something investors didn't like in there. I think I know what it might be. We'll take a look at that when we talk about that, okay? So you can see, obviously, miners were down for the day. We'll have those days, obviously. We'll have good days, we'll have bad days, and we'll have, obviously, hopefully more good days going forward than we do bad days. But that's to be expected with the miners here. All right, so that's it for that. Let's take a look at the stories that we do have here. The first one is going to be on Bitdeer. So Bitdeer announces April 2024 production updates here. some main things that I took out of this: self-mining stayed at 6.7 exahash here. That didn't change at all. Their Bitcoin mine did come down here a little bit here to 265 from 294. And then we do have some updates here on their infrastructure update. So the company has continued to make progress in the construction of 175 megawatt immersion cooling data centers at its mining facility in Tidal, Norway. The Tidal data center, the expansion of the Tidal data center is expected to be completed in mid-2025. Right, so basically a year out still. I was a little surprised. Maybe I didn't pick up on this earlier on, but I was a little surprised that they're doing immersion cooling in there. I would think that Norway is a little bit of a cooler climate. At least that was my thoughts on it. So I don't know why you would do immersion cooling at that site. You might be better off doing that in like Texas or Abu Dhabi or something like that. But they're doing it in Norway. I don't know if that's for testing reasons. Well, I don't think it's for testing. If you're doing 175 megawatts, it's not for testing. They could be doing it just to extend the lifespan of the miners, potentially overclock them, things like that. That could be also the reason for it there. Okay, but I was a little surprised. I would think that you would go with maybe air cooling there instead of doing the immersion cooling. The company has continued to make progress in the construction of 221 megawatt data center in Ohio, United States. The land and the power resources required for the Ohio data center were secured during 2023. Construction of the Ohio data center is expected to be completed in 2025. So again, a year out basically. The company has made progress in the construction of a 500 megawatt data center in Jigmeling, Bhutan, which has began construction in March 2024, and around 70% of the ground leveling work for the project substation area has been completed to date and is expected to be fully completed by the end of May 2024. Ground leveling work for the mining data center area had commenced as of the beginning of May 2024. The company has also confirmed its plan to procure the substation's electrical equipment with supplier and expects that such equipment will be purchased by June 2024. The Jingmeling data center is expected to be completed in mid-2025. So there you got 3 projects that are basically going to be done in mid-2025. The concern there is, at least for me, when I look at news releases like this, especially as we're getting into the bull run here, is that by mid-2025, we might be already past the bull run, unfortunately, if we have the similar cycles like we had before. Right? We don't know that's going to be the case. We've seen, obviously, that Bitcoin has pumped much higher pre-halving than we've seen in the past, reaching new all-time highs, which is never done. So it'll be interesting to see if we have an extended bull run, right, that might last a couple of years, or if we're going to have the same cycle where we have 12 to 18 months basically of bull run, and then we get into a bear market again. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them, but I don't know if they could have planned that any better, or, you know, maybe they, I don't know, it's tough. But obviously, when I'm looking at these companies, I want to see obviously a lot of growth here this year, especially as Bitcoin prices going up, because you're going to be able to benefit from it so much more going into 2025. Okay, so that's it on that one. And then also manufacturing update for their ASICs. The company's mining machine project is progressing as planned. As of now, all laboratory testing and preparations for the batch production have been completed. The company will conduct small batch trial production in May and in June. The mining machines produced during the trial production will be delivered to the company's own mining data center for stability testing. All right, so they have to get past that. Once they get past that, then they can go probably into full bore production and, you know, get them all out to their customers and for their own use as well. But that's kind of what we have here for them. Let's take a look at the numbers here for Bitdeer. So Bitdeer has 111 million shares outstanding. Market cap is at 643 million. The performance over the last 12 weeks hasn't been great here. Obviously, you can see that they're down 10% from 12 weeks ago. They're down 17 from 8 weeks ago. They're down about 20 from 4 weeks ago. And then last week, they were down about 9.6% on it. Their current hash rate is 6.7 exahash. This is for self-mining. They obviously have a lot more, right? If we look at it up here, they have a lot more stuff going on with cloud hash rate, hosting, proprietary hash. So they definitely have a lot of stuff going on here. Hosting is their biggest one here, so 13.9 obviously. Okay, but we're not really tracking that. We're really concentrating on self-mining. So they do have some growth left, obviously, to 11 exahash that they're saying that they're supposed to get to this year, which I believe, we'll take a look at the numbers down below. But they're supposed to get to that. They don't have anything for HODL, right? So they're not HODLing anything. BTC production has been coming down ever since their best month was, looks like September of last year, 482, and then it's been coming down ever since then. That's because you're really not seeing much growth in hash rate. So when you don't see a growth in hash rate, you're going to see a decline in Bitcoin production. Revenue has been increasing. Obviously, that's benefit of Bitcoin price going up in value. Plus, we had the large spike in transaction fees in December, November, and partly in January as well. And then it looks like I forgot to update this field here. I'm missing that one. So that one came in at, there we go. Actually, want to do this. Okay, so I missed one graph here. April, there we go. Their best month was in March, actually 19.9 million here, and then they're down to 17.46 million. No hodl there. Hash rate, as you can see here, hash rate reached a peak at 7.2 exahash. Then they took some of that stuff off and put it into their, what do they call that? I keep forgetting what they call that. Cloud hash rate. So they put that into that side of business. That brought their own self-mining down to 6.7, and that has been flat for the last 5 months or so, right? So when you look at that, that's flat. You're going to see BTC price coming, or BTC production going down as a result of that. BTC sold, they sold everything. BTC per exahash efficiency, 39.6. Not too bad, not too great either. Kind of in the middle here somewhere. Based on the other miners, BTC sold value, how much they've been selling. Going down here to institutions. Institutions did increase a little bit here to 47. Shares actually went down to 7.1 million from 7.2 million. Percentage went down to 10.33 from 10.96. We still have one strong buy rating, 7 buy ratings now, so that's an increase of 2. 0 holds, 0 underperforms, 0 sells. Price target stayed at 20 for the high. The average went down to 13.31, and the low stayed at 9 on it, based on the information I was able to gather. Going down here, as far as machines, here is, they removed 1.4 exahash old A6. The seal miners, here we go. So the seal miners are going to be about 4.8. They're saying that they're going to remove about 1.4 of exahash of the old miners. I'm guessing it's going to be these 93 terahash miners on average on that one. I don't have exact numbers for them because when they went public, we didn't have the information prior to that. So we were basing that off of what they had released as far as what their average hash rate was and machines, the number of machines they had and so on. So forth and so on, okay? Going down here to April, we added 2.16 million in additional revenue from Bitcoin transaction fees for them. That got us to the 17.458 million, which coincides with this here based on the average Bitcoin price in April as well. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at there with Bitdeer. My numbers here, I'm including the other side of businesses, which are just estimates as best I can come up with them. Those obviously are for their hosting, which is their big one here. So I'm trying to figure out what is their profitability on that. And maybe I'm being a little bit too generous on this side of things, but I'm giving them 50% of revenue for hosting, right? Which is something that they reported a couple quarters back that they were very profitable on that business. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt there, like 50% on that profit margin potentially, which is unheard of in the industry because most of the companies that do hosting, they're like at 15, 20% max, right? Or even less than that. So I'm being generous here on this side of things. So I'm looking at $16.23 to $24.35. If we bring down, let me see, where is it? Combined totals, I think it is, I would have to do it down here. Yeah, I have it down here where I'm calculating 50%, 0.5 right here. I would have to change that number. So you could say maybe decrease that by a quarter or so. So maybe at that point you're looking at like $12 to $18, something like that. Okay. Potentially, if depending on how profitable the hosting side of the business is actually. They're currently at 575. I do think that they're undervalued, right? But there's not much growth going for them this year other than the their own machines that they're going to be installing at the end of the year. And then we might see a lot of growth for them in 2025. We just don't know exactly how much because they haven't really supplied that information yet. But based on that, that's kind of where we are at with them right now, right? I'm looking at companies that are growing tremendously here in 2024 by the end of the year. Right, so we're looking at like Riot, Marathon, Cleanspark, Bitfarms, IREN. Right, those guys are all having plans to get to 50 exahash, 30 exahash, 20 some odd exahash. So that's kind of what I'm looking at mostly on those types of miners. That's it for Bitdeer. Let's get into Cipher mining. So Cipher mining obviously provides their Q1 results. I did listen into the conference call. I didn't listen to it while it was going on. I listened to the recording of it. A couple of things there were only 2 things that I took away from it. One was how much they need cash to build out the rest of Black Pearl, along with miners there. Based on what they reported, it looks like they're going to need about 140 to 160 million on top of what they already have as far as Bitcoin treasury and cash on hand currently. So that might actually mean that they might need more if they're going to hodl, but I'm guessing they might sell. We don't know that. And the other thing was, I'm trying to think what the other thing was. I should just slip my mind. If it comes back to me, I'll remind you guys about it. But there was really not that much news that we haven't heard before. So, okay. I'll go down here. First quarter 2024 GAAP net income was 40 million and non-GAAP adjusted earnings was 63 million, which was good, right? A lot of that was benefited because of the FASB rules and the Bitcoin hodl that they do have. Okay, and then I think here, this is the reason why I think the stock didn't do that well today. It was actually down 15%, right? So current self-mining hash rate of 7.7 exahash and on track to reach 9.3. So you're basically installing 1.6 exahash by the end of the third quarter of 2024. Right, so in the next basically 2 quarters that we're in, with plans to grow to 25.1 exahash by the end of 2025. That's the main thing part here that I think investors were hoping that this might get improved, right? The 25 exahash by the end of 2025, because again, at this point, I'm thinking that the bull run might be over by then, historically speaking, right? We don't know if it's gonna happen this time around, but historically speaking, that's kind of the way we're looking at the miners, the whole sector right now is after the halving event, you get about 12 to 18 months where Bitcoin usually rallies really hard, right? And if you're doing all the right things, growing into it, that's where you're going to benefit the most from it. And I think this is the reason why the market kind of dumped on Cipher a little bit today, right? So we really want to see growth this year. But continuing on here, this is a quote from them. We continue to invest heavily in our expansion and in the early stages of construction at our new Black Pearl data center. And our data center are well underway. We've already cleared and leveled over 50 acres, and we still start laying concrete foundations this month. Because of this progress and our strong financial position, we have decided to accelerate our plans and build the entire 300 megawatt data center in 2025. We expect to be at 9.3 exahash by the end of Q3. And then at least 25.1 exahash by the end of 2025. Right? Okay. That was the other thing here. The good part was obviously that they want to build out the entire 300 megawatts that I was thinking of. So that was good news there as well. But obviously the timing, I think, is not great. Right? I think going forward, they'll do really well. But just right now in this time frame where investors are looking to invest in miners, they're looking at the next, obviously in the next 10 to 12 months, potentially something like that, where miners will grow the most at that point. That's kind of the way I'm seeing things. Could be wrong on that, but it's just kind of the way I'm seeing things. Okay. So let's take a look at the numbers that we do have here for Cipher. And I'm getting the sniffles here. I'm going to be sneezing here a lot here, so bear with me if I do. Every once in a while, I get this little like allergies or something that just triggers me, and then I start sneezing for like a couple minutes. So if that happens, please bear with me. It's never advantageous when we're doing this live. But here's Cipher. So Q1 results. We'll get into these metrics here in a minute. Going down here, current assets increased quite nicely here by about 100 million, roughly, about 94 million or so, 250 million right now. So that's good there. Total assets, 677 million right now. And I gotta sneeze, sorry. I hate allergies. 566 from prior quarters, so that's a good increase there as well. Current liabilities actually went down to 30.9 million from 33.7, so that's good there. Going down here, total stockholder equity came in at 677,000 from 566,000. That's a nice increase there as well. Revenues here increased to 48 million from 43 million, so that's good there. And then cost of revenue. Cost of revenue actually went up here a little bit to 14.8 from 13.9, right? On that one, compensation and benefits. So they actually broke this out this time around. They didn't do that in the prior quarters. So they're basically taking out the share-based compensation and benefits out of the actual general administrative things. So things will look a little bit different here going forward. Okay, so general administrative came in at 6 million here compared to obviously 22.5 million, which obviously included the cost, compensation benefits in there as well. So you're seeing that difference there. Depreciation was lower, also at 7 million instead of the 13 million. Power sales was lower a little bit, also 1.1 million from 1.4 million here. And going down here, we had the gains on fair value of Bitcoin, right? So they got about 40 million or so from that. Sorry. Let me see, equity and loss of that's down. Actually, that was up a little bit here. And then total cost of revenue was 46 million compared to, we had a 4.8. How did we get 4.8? Oh, 38 million. Total cost of operating, okay. Yeah, so 1.3 million here compared to 38 million here, and that's based on mainly this part here, I think. Why do we get 38 million here? Change in fair value derivatives. Costs were a little bit lower there. General administrative was higher. Okay, that's maybe why. Okay, cost of revenue minus depreciation was 20.8 compared to 35.8 here. But that obviously doesn't include the 13 million in compensation here. So if you add that on top of it, we're pretty close to where we were before. Let's see here. Other income, interest income. What do we have here? Loss before income taxes came in at 45 million compared to 4.1 million roughly here for Q4. So that was obviously good there. And then they came in at 13 cents EPS positive on the quarter, which was actually good, where they came in basically like at zero the prior quarter, or just above that, just slightly, maybe in decimal points over. Basic average was 296 million shares, and that is it. So overall, really good quarter, right? If you take out the 40 million or so that they got for the gains in fair value, I think at that point they would be, let's see here, probably be, it still might be net gain 39. What are we using for net gain loss 39? Yeah, so if you take that out, they would actually be EPS negative, I guess. Looks like by this number here. Okay. Going up here to some of the results that we have here. General administrative obviously is down to 39%, and this I think I'm looking at. I'm using the whole thing. Let me see, what am I using in here? Yeah, I'm using the compensation, benefits, and general administrative combined here. So that's got the 19 million here. And that's still 39.71%, right? They were at 51.92, so that is better. And that's when I talk about scale, right? If you can reach scale in Bitcoin mining, these costs, the general administrative and compensation things, go down as you reach mass scale, I guess you could say, right? The more scale you have, the more hash rate and everything else. That will help offset these kind of like fixed costs, which are not really fixed costs, because when you have share-based compensation, that can fluctuate, right? Depending when you hire people and when you get people in, and then depending on what you give them as far as bonuses and things like that, they can fluctuate. And, there's obviously a lot of discussion in the space here, and especially with Bitcoin miners, is are they getting too much in stock-based compensation for the C-suite, basically? And, I could see it both ways. I could see that they're definitely getting way too much, and then, but they're also getting it for the performance that they do. So I think it is a little extravagant as far as some of the general or the share-based compensation that they do get. It's almost like, the way I look at it, it's almost like a guaranteed lottery ticket for some of these guys, right? If they do the right things, they grow the hash rate, they grow the network, or they grow the stock price, everything else. They get all these share options, these grants and things like that, that vest over time, obviously. But it's a lot of money, right? So I don't know. We'll see on that one. Okay, debt to EBITDA 1.03, EV to EBITDA 14.97. Enterprise value is 958 million. EBITDA was 64 million here, looks like, on that one. And then price to book ratio was 1.8. Book value was 600 million, and current ratio was 8, so that's an increase from the 4.6. Debt to equity was down to 1.26, so that's a decrease from the 1.5 that we saw there. Cost to mine 1 Bitcoin minus depreciation came in at 16.5, based on what they actually mined here for the quarter, which was down obviously from the prior quarter as well. Okay. Excuse me. So if we look at all this stuff, sorry about sniffing, allergies are kicking in. But if we look at the total current assets, that's obviously been increasing. That's a good sign there. Current ratio has been increasing. That's a good sign there. Debt to equity has been decreasing. That's a good sign there. Current liabilities have been decreasing as well. That's a good sign. So there's a lot of good going on with Cipher. It's just their growth projections, trajectory going into 2024 is not the greatest. Most of it's going to be obviously in 2025, which I think is the reason why the stock didn't do so well today, right? Bitcoin mined quarterly, that's been obviously coming down here. Let me see if I got the right numbers here for them. Yeah, and I was even actually using the, let me see, was I using the numbers here? Yeah, I think I was using the BTC mine for both the joint ventures and for themselves. Let me take a look. Is that maybe why? The numbers came up kind of high here. Nope, I was using those. If we use these here, let's see if we get the different numbers here for them. At that point, we would get Bitcoin price. Where is the Bitcoin? Okay, much better numbers. Cost to mine 1 Bitcoin minus depreciation came in at 14.5 instead of what I had before, right? That's more in line with what they had before. Slight increase, obviously, because the network hash rate has increased. And then, so that's kind of to be expected, I think. And they've also installed some machines down here, so that should kind of make sense a little bit. But what else do we have here for them? Oh, last 4 quarters revenue, right? It's been going up, which is nice to see, which is kind of what we wanted to see here. And then obviously current quarter that we're in, we're going to see a decrease because we have the halving event. So that is going to decrease, but that's just estimated right now as it is. Okay. Let's see here. That's for cost for operating minus depreciation, right? Those have been coming down, but if you add in the 13 million that they got for for share-based compensation, that would get us up to pretty close to where they were, but still down a little bit. Okay. Okay. Overall, based on all these numbers here, let me see if I'm using the latest numbers here that we have for them. And I'm not. So they were at 48 million. I had them at 47 million. I was off by 1.73% on their estimated revenue here. Okay. So that's kind of where things came in at. If we plug that number in, we're still looking at $5.32, $7.98, MMP at 20. They do have really good growth into 2025. They're 379. I think they are undervalued right now based on where they should be. But yeah, definitely would like to see more growth happening in 2024. I don't know if they can do anything about it. They're obviously building out their Black Pearl site, which obviously is going to take time. And we'll just have to see what happens going forward with them. I know they're going to be fine, right? But maybe they won't perform as great as maybe some of the other miners that are growing more so this year. We'll have to see. Time will tell. Their HODL stack has also been improving nicely here. So that should be a big benefit for them going forward as well if Bitcoin price goes up in value. So there's a lot of good things here. The only real negative I can really find right now is that their own hash rate growth this year is subpar to some of the other miners that we obviously cover here, which I talked about here, which include Marathon, Riot, Cleanspark, Bitfarms, IREN, right? Even maybe TeraWolf as well in that camp, where they're going to be growing more so this year than what Cipher is. Okay, so that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, my little sales pitch as always. Spreadsheets are available to my Patreon members. The link for that is down in the description below. That's $8 a month. You might be able to find the spot that's $5 or $4 a month as well. And then if you pay the 10 months yearly plan, that's 10% savings on that. And what else can I say? Oh, and you get access to the Discord server as well. Okay, so that's it. My sales pitch. Let's get into the Q&A side of things before my allergies really kick in and I start crying. Okay, so let's get into the Q&A side of things, and we'll call it a day. See if you guys have any questions. Okay. All right. Okay. Victor, question. Hi, Sebastian. I have Cipher at $5.30. Please advise. Okay. So if your average price is $5.30 on them, they're at, what are they at right now? Cipher is at $3.79. Okay. So you're down quite a bit. You're down about what, 35, 40% or something like that on them at this point. Don't know how much you have in them. I think they will do fine going forward. With Bitcoin going up, it's going to raise all the boats up with it, right? So will they outperform some of the other miners? I don't know. I don't see that happening though, right? With their hash rate growth for this year. But things can definitely get wild. Things can get crazy. So it's up to you, right? Do you want to wait until it gets to that break-even point for you, which might... I think it's going to be obviously this year with Bitcoin going up to maybe 100,000. Some are saying 150,000. It's just a matter of time, right? So it's going to take some time maybe. And maybe when people do kind of review it, they might actually get back more into the stock itself when it becomes more beaten down maybe a little bit more. But we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, I hear you guys talking about Tom from Talking Investing. I haven't seen the video, or I don't know if he did a video on it or not, but I guess what people are saying that he was bashing our spaces on Twitter. So I don't know. I can't comment on it because I haven't really heard it, so I can't really say anything about it. But I don't. I'd like to think Tom wouldn't do that, but I could be wrong. Let's see here. What else do we have here? I bet hit some Walgreens up for some drugs. Yeah, for some allergy medicine. Let's see here. Where do I see Cipher going? Well, I mean, they're doing great, right? It's just their growth this year is kind of capped a little bit. It's not going to really happen until 2025. So it all depends on where Bitcoin goes. If Bitcoin doesn't rocket until 2025, then they might really do actually really well. My thought process is that Bitcoin might kind of front run the cycle a little bit because of all the attention the ETFs are getting, everything else. We're talking about ETFs now in Singapore, I think, as well, possibly going for spot Bitcoin ETF. So there might be, I don't know, it's tough to say. Right? Nobody can see forward more than a couple hours, let alone a couple months, 12 months ahead. So, but based on historical events and Bitcoin halving events and things like that, Bitcoin usually runs in like 12 to 18 months after the halving event, right? That would put us basically right around maybe the end of 2025, right? But if it front runs in a little bit and we get it in like 10 to 12 months where we get the peak, at that point, Cipher, I think, will do well. I don't think they're going to outperform some of the other miners because most of their growth is not until 2025. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it here. Let's see your question. If BTC were to follow Plan B price prediction of 500,000 this bull run, then theoretically, what share price could Cleanspark and Cipher reach? Oh my goodness. I mean, if we reach 500,000, I mean, you're looking at possibly some of these guys being, Cleanspark being like $200, $300 stock potentially. Just a wild number that's in my head right now based on what I'm thinking where the stock could go, right? Cipher at that point could be like $100 stock potentially, right? If we get to those types of levels, you would have to definitely run the numbers on it as far as how fast it would happen, when it could happen, what the network hash rate would actually get to. There's a lot of variables that play into that, but you could definitely model it potentially. But I think definitely much higher than what our expectations are right now. Let's see. Hive is down a lot for the week. Do you think it's really attractive price now? Let me take a look at Hive here, where they're at on my charts. I'm still waiting on Hive. Hive is the last one to provide their operational update for April. Let me see here. I think they are definitely undervalued from where they really should be, and I think it's mainly because of their growth, right, or lack of substantive growth, right? They're at $2.27. I haven't been $6.30 to $9.45, but the market's not really valuing them based on their growth going forward. They do have a little bit of HODL as well. Their HODL is now at 2,287. So, I mean, they're doing all the right things. They're efficient and everything else, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you guys, like me, are looking for companies that are going to be growing tremendously in the next, till the end of the year, potentially, right? We'll have to see. I do think that they're undervalued from where they really should be, and I don't know why. I think it could be also that they can't take advantage of the FASB rules, potentially. That might be a reason why as well, right? They're not growing as much. That could be a reason why. So that's kind of where I'm looking at Hive right now. Okay, hi, question. Sorry if you already mentioned this, but do you think the market had overreacted on Cipher today and in somewhat good spot to DCA into? Why or why not? Thank you. The big thing I think was, like I said, I think it's just Cipher's growth this year. It's only going to get to 9.7 by the end of Q3 that they're targeting, right? And then they're going to get to 25 exahash next year, 2025, by the end of next year. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. So I think that was the reaction there. I think the market was kind of, or at least some investors were hoping that they would come out with something that they're going to be able to increase that hash rate this year more so than into 2025, right? So if they could get to like maybe 15 exahash this year and then another 10 exahash next year, I think that would have been more appealing to investors instead of what we actually got, right? So I think that's the reason why. I don't know if, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. Should you DCA in? Like I said before, if Bitcoin goes up in value, all of these stocks should go up in value as well, right? Some will do better than others. Will Cipher be one of those? I don't know. That's hard to tell. Let's see. Let me see here. Okay, covered that. I already covered a little bit of a Hive here. Talked about it just a second ago. So again, be patient with me. It's like a 15-second delay between what I see and what you guys hear. Okay. Think any point in time that the ETF players buy on exchange just to pump the price instead of using the OTC markets. Eventually, the OTC markets will run dry, right? There's only 450 Bitcoin being produced a day now, right? If you have much more demand, so if that's 1,000 BTC per day, that's only going to be able to go through the OTCs for a while before those dry up, and they will have to go into the exchanges as well, right? Let's see. Thoughts on the market's reaction to dilution to HODL, example, Riot Cipher. I think there's opportune times to do HODL, right? I don't like it when companies HODLed in 2022. We had two great examples of that, Marathon and Hut 8. They were, especially Hut 8. Hut 8 was not doing anything to grow their own hash rate or anything like that. They were just basically mining, hodling what they mined, and then they diluted shareholders in order to hodl their positions, right? I'm not a big fan of that, especially when you're in bear market, things are going down. It's like, wow, you should be actually looking forward to growing at that point, looking to buy machines at a much lower cost and things like that at that point. Now, as we get closer to the halving events, I think there is, I think that's a good time to start getting into the HODL, even if you have to dilute shareholders a little bit because of it. Because if you think about Bitcoin going up at least 2 to 3x, your HODL is going to be worth 2 to 3x at that point as well, right? That's accretive to investors, in my opinion, at that point. So there's times to do it. As long as they sell some of that, obviously, HODL in the bull runs, I think that's the way to do it, right? To then use those funds to grow in the bear market again. So you're paying for your additional growth going forward, I think, right? That's kind of the way I look at it. So I don't agree with dilution at all costs just to HODL, especially in the bear markets, like I said, but there are times where I think it does make sense. Let's see. I already covered Hive. Thoughts on stock reaction, core earnings tomorrow. That'll be interesting, right? So core, this is going to be the first quarter that they've been out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Partially, at least. I think they were out of it like January 20th, January 19th. I can't remember exactly when they were out from that. So it will be partially, but I think it's going to be full quarter of it anyways. They obviously have generated a lot of revenue. We'll have to see the numbers on it. Hopefully they didn't have to put a bunch of crap into it to get out of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy on top of it, which they did in Q4 already. Which I looked like they did in Q4 at least. So I'm hoping that Q1 numbers look much, much better, and I think they might be positive on it, right? I've been saying this for a while, that the reason core isn't getting the love it should be getting, because it's way undervalued in my estimation, is because Chapter 11 bankruptcy, right? That's always going to hang over their heads for at least a little while longer. So I think investors want to see at least a quarter or two, maybe even 3 quarters of good numbers from them, that they're doing the right things, growing their hash rate, doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. At that point, I think they'll get much, much more love. We're also seeing that recently. I talked about core, was it yesterday? I think they provided their update, that they actually got more institutions added to them. We got analysts also providing price targets for them, which is a good sign there. So it's starting to pick up a little bit there, and then we need to see more of that. And I think when that does happen, the stock will do much better going forward. Hey, Sebastian, what are your bull case targets for IREN if they get projected growth for... if they hit, I guess, the projected growth for this year completed and BTC price 130,000. So that's basically 2x on them. If they can grow their hash rate, what is it going to be? Almost roughly another 2x from there. They are at, where are they at right now? IREN is at $5. And so I'm guessing probably around $20, $25, if not $30 potentially, if not higher, somewhere around there. That'd be my guess. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Canon? They're the only BTC stock that has lagged immensely. Looks super attractive. No, I've talked about Canon before on many occasions here. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys something here really quick. Let me see if I can do this. Let me see. No, don't want that one. I want this one. I don't want to go to miners only. Okay, I'm going to pull something up for you guys. So we're going to take a comparison here on, I think I have got Canon in here. I don't. Okay, let me go back here. Miners. We're going to compare something here. And you guys will see what I'm talking about when it comes to Canon. So we want to compare, not those guys, we want to compare Bitcoin to Canon, which should be down here, I believe. Yep, there it is. Okay, so compare symbols. Look at this chart here. This is just for the 1 year chart, right? Bitcoin's up 126%, Canon is down 65%. Does that look like something you want to invest in? Just based on that chart alone, right? If you see that with any Bitcoin proxy or anything like that, run for the hills. because there's no way that this thing is reacting to or a proxy on Bitcoin in any sense of the form that I can see, at least not right now. Right? If you go back 5 years out, Bitcoin's up 799%, Canon is down 92%. Right? Not really a good proxy for Bitcoin. If you look at 3 months, same thing. Bitcoin's up 40%, Canon's down 39%. It was up here a little bit. It kind of shut up here. I don't know why it shut up, but obviously after that, it started to pull back down. So based on that, I would be very, very cautious with Canon. It doesn't look to me like it's a very good proxy to Bitcoin right now. I think the miners are a much better proxy on it. So that's just my take on it, right? But obviously do your own due diligence on it. Let's see here. Question. Hi, Seb. Did you hear anything from Ben at Bitfarms? No, I have not. I have not heard anything from him on it. We'll try to get him on Spaces again. I know he's been busy in the past, so we'll try to get him on Spaces again one of these weekends, hopefully. Let's see. That's GTN. I don't know about that one. Let's see. Okay, Mara announced they will sell a portion of the BTC mine to cover operations. Yeah, they've been doing it for a while, right? They've been kind of in and out of selling it, depending on where Bitcoin price is going up and everything else. But they've been selling more and more here recently, which is good to see, right? You don't want them to hodl everything and dilute shareholders, or there's really no reason for it. Right? You got to pay operations. You're mining, you need to sell some of it sometimes, but they obviously have a huge stack. They're way ahead of everybody else. They can afford to do that, obviously. Let's see. Oh, this is, I think I picked the wrong one here. Let's see here, going down here. Trying to find a question here for you guys. Okay. Is growth of a company only defined by hash rate growth? How about other factors such as alternative revenue like AI, less dilution, more hodl, reductions in G&A? Are they not signs of growth? Thoughts? AI would be obviously a sign of growth, right? But we need to see some good numbers from the companies that are in AI, like what's the profit margin on it, right now, the miners, obviously with the ASICs mining and Bitcoin mining, during the bull runs, that's where, I mean, a lot of profits are made at those points. AI is more of a flat business, right? Where you get a contract in for somebody that's a short-term contract is obviously more profitable than a longer-term contract as far as economics are concerned, but you obviously have a longer contract, so you can bet on that a little bit more. So that is obviously for growth. They can also use HODL obviously for growth as well. You could use that. What else could you use? I think them doing, balance sheet things like cutting expenses. That's a good sign there, right? That's going to make it more profitable in the end on the EPS and things like that. Which I said the miners should be doing that like a year ago when we're getting to the halving event. I said the miners need to become very, very lean into the halving event if they want to survive. So there's other things you can possibly take a look at, but obviously hash rate growth is one of the main ones here, especially when you're in the bull run. When does Mara report? I believe they report Thursday. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I believe it's Thursday for them. Yeah, and Cleanspark had it. Yeah, stated the same thing. Let's see. Which miner is the most undervalued at the moment? Thanks. Honestly, I'll have to say it's probably Core. Core is probably the most undervalued right now. Based on just where their price of stock is. Yes, there's fear of dilution with the warrants, but those are also good because they get to pay off debts and they also get money for it. So there's trade-offs with Core, right? But if you take that into account where you're gonna have dilution at that point, they're still way undervalued from where they really should be. Then you got probably Bitfarms, IREN in there as well. Who else could be in there? A little bit of Wolf, Cipher right now looks a little bit like it's undervalued as well, right? But sometimes there's reasons for those things, right? Lack of growth, debt, whatever it might be. There's some things that might also be accounting for that. Let's see. What do you think about Iconic Digital? Is their fleet viable? Any chance of success? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe their fleet is 100 terahash, right? Majority of it is. So it's definitely going to be challenging. And then if they're with the managed services through Hut 8, what is that going to bring them at for like the cost? Is going to be like 5.5, 6 cents, 6.5 cents. If that's the case, that might be kind of tough there, unless Bitcoin really starts ripping up much higher. Question, Sebastian, I'm up 20% on Cipher, thinking about selling and buying more Bitfarms. Just your opinion. But I think you guys know my stance on Bitfarms and IREN and Cleanspark and things like that. I like to look at companies that are growing their hash rate tremendously this year, right? Just because they say that they're growing to like Bitfarms 21 exahash and IREN to 20 exahash, will they actually get there, right? That's the other part of it is trust but verify. We need to see that they can actually get there. We know that Bitfarms has buildings and infrastructure that they can grow out into as well. IREN obviously has a huge facility that they can grow into as well. So we know that that is definitely feasible and doable for them. But this is kind of what I'm looking for. You guys have to decide if you like a certain stock, Cipher or something like that. I do like the stock greatly. The only reason I'm not in it is because the growth, right? Could I be wrong on that? Also, I could be wrong on that too, right? Where investors view other things that are more important instead of just growth. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's kind of worked out really well for me with Cleanspark, right? I was looking at the growth that they've had over the years, got into them quite heavily here, and that's really worked out for me. So I'm kind of taking that lesson learned from that one and applying it to some of the other miners as well. And that's the way I'm doing it. So obviously up to you. You have to do what's best for you. Let's see. Is Riot still undervalued? Yeah, I think they are still undervalued, right? If they can fix their infrastructure issues, well, not really infrastructure issues, well, partially. Their machines at Rockdale, and then if they can have much better uptime in, is it Corsicana? I think it's Corsicana. At that facility, if they have much better uptime, they will do definitely much, much better. Let's see here. Question, what happens to the miners if we have a market crash this year or early next year? Seems like miners have correlation to market, so they may crash even Bitcoin price going up, right? No, because Bitcoin price going up and the market still crashes, but at that point I would think if the market's crashing, Bitcoin might be crashing too. But Bitcoin going up is enough of a correlation for the miners to be making a heck of a lot more money, and that should be enough to drive the prices of the miners up with it. Question, do you like more was it BTB? That's Bit Digital or Hive? Well, that's a good question. They're both looking to be about 6 exahash by the end of the year, I believe, right? And then Bit Digital has right now they have a business with AI that's bringing in about 15 million, but we need to see what that profit margin is like on that business. And we'll get that when they do report here in the next couple of days. So that's a tough question. It'd be a toss-up between the two. Bit Digital, I think, seems to be like they want to grow more, right? But we need to also see where they go beyond the 6 exahash of the self-mining for Bitcoin, and then what will they do with the AI side of things as well, and how profitable that is. Let's see. Who do you think will buy Stronghold? Oh, gosh, I have no clue. You might have a private miner that wants to go public, right? That has pretty good backing behind them with capital. They may put in a bid to buy them out because that gives them basically an on-ramp to the exchanges quickly, and they can get obviously some infrastructure in there as well and some hash rate part of it, but they also would be buying debt on that point too. But would that be better than going through the IPO route or something like that, which could take a year or two, depending on how long that process takes, right? So if you want to get in while the market is hot, that might be a way to do it. Okay, Robert is saying Mara Cleanspark tomorrow after the close. Tomorrow that might be your time, so you might be already on Wednesday. So tomorrow, I think Thursday. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Let's see. I'm reading some of the more comments about time here. Let me see here. Trying to find some questions. FYI, so Wall Street Journal reports Cipher fell today because profit is 48.1 million, not 50.3 million as predicted. I think they have the JVs, right? So if you include the JVs, it might be at the 50.3 million, but I don't know if it fell because of that, being off by 2 million on Bitcoin. I mean, you're pretty close at that point. I try to be at least within 2.5% of what they report, because you're not going to get any closer than that, I think. It's tough to get any closer. I've done it a couple times, but it's hard. But I think it's that, and then also the growth this year, and not so much the growth next year as well, or more growth next year than this year. Let's see here. Okay, I think we just pretty much caught up with all the questions here, guys. So we've been going on almost an hour, about 15 minutes or so. So I think we're going to call it a day here, unless you guys have any more questions, which I don't see any more popping up. Oh, we got some more popping up here. I think it's just lagging. Let's see here. Are your price targets for miners such as Cleanspark, Bitfarms, and IREN still the same for the end of the year? Yeah, I'm still looking at probably the same price targets, but that all depends on Bitcoin getting to like 100,000 plus, right? The bull run price targets obviously higher than where at the end of the year price targets possibly could be right now. But yeah, I'm still bullish on obviously the miners, those three especially, doing really well this year. Let's see. Okay. Not sure if you answered this already, but what is your prediction for Cleanspark this earnings, up or down? Do you think they have a catalyst to announce? I think the earnings will be up. I think the earnings will be EPS positive because they obviously held more. The FASB rules will go into effect on that. They're going to be able to report higher EPS, I think, than they did in their Q1, which was our Q4. They're reporting their Q2 right now. So I think, yes. I don't know exactly what the number is going to be, but I believe it's going to be higher. Now, do I think that they're going to have, let me see here. Do you think they'll have a catalyst to announce? So catalyst, you're probably talking about like, are they buying any infrastructure or things like that? I'm hoping they speak about that because I think that's very important because we're in May already, right? They're at 17 exahash, something like that. And they need to get to 32 exahash. That's basically 15 exahash they need to install in the next, basically 6 months. That's a lot. So we definitely need some information from them on that side of things. Let's see. Okay, I think that's it. I don't see anything else on it. All right, guys, we'll call it a day. Thank you so much for coming in to watch this video. We'll get into whatever news and data we have I can't speak. I'm tired. It's already 10 o'clock. We'll get into whatever news we have for tomorrow, any data, metrics, or things like that. I'm still waiting on Hive. I may not wait for Hive. Hive sometimes reports not until like the 12th or the 13th sometimes. So if they can report this week, we'll get into the numbers next week as far as how the miners did in comparison to each other for April. Right, we'll look at a bunch of metrics for that. And then it's going to be a while before we get, I think, all of the Q1 results for the companies. When they do that, we'll get into the quarterly one metrics as well. Let's see how everybody did against each other at that point. Okay, so that is it. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for coming in to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe. Helps me out tremendously. And I will see you guys tomorrow. All right, see you then. Bye.